If you think you've seen some patch notes before, chances are you've probably seen a couple of things listed about weapons and everything like that, but if you take a look at the list of everything that was changed out within a Black Ops 4's title update to kick off weekend 2 here, well, you might be taken for a little bit of surprise because it is an incredibly long list of things. So, of course, with all that, there is a lot to know, some things obviously more important than others, and some things that are listed that do actually change how the game feels overall, not just how some things break down statistically. So today in this video, we're gonna be breaking down everything the Black Ops 4 beta patch 1.05 really changed here for this, and let you know everything there is to know about the game now moving forward. So that said, let's start out at the very beginning here for this. So let's jump in with something that isn't on the patch notes list, but is there if you guys check it out in game, that being the brand new heist game mode, which is a first to 4 round game mode in which you end up having to eliminate players. It's like search and destroy, but players can go down, which is where the blackout downed animations are gonna come from, by the way. It's something that you end up downing players. You can pick up your teammates if they're still alive or don't get finished, but the main objective is to either eliminate the enemies or extract the cash, which will be dropped at a neutral point in the map, and then take it to an extraction point to win that round. So in that sense, first to 4 to win that is how you end up playing it out. But one thing that's also really cool with this is it has its own ecosystem in game. There's no create a class, but there is one in game. So what you end up doing, you don't spawn in initially, you can choose a specialist, but each round you end up getting cash to which you have to buy a weapon, you have to buy perks, you have to buy attachments, ammo, that kind of stuff. So it changes an entire different meta in game, which is awesome, I think. I had a lot of fun with this. It is a very sweaty mode right now, I will warn you. So in that sense, there's gonna be a lot of people trying really, really hard, but definitely try this one out. But now getting into the stuff that will actually be in the patch notes. They ended up talking firstly about general fixes such as stability and performance, to which they ended up saying they optimized how matchmaking was working previously compared to last weekend. They made fixes to reduce a number of network disconnects. They resolved several hitches that were occurring during gameplay, resolved UI errors that would occur in the menus, fixed numerous crashes and freezes, and then fixed the scoreboard function icons sometimes getting flipped during kill cams. So in that sense, they start out by getting all the technical stuff that you might not experience on a day-to-day basis, but there's somebody out there that has had these issues before. They got those right out of the way, the air quote boring stuff, I guess you could say. But then talking about the next thing they bring up is maps, to which they address performance optimizations across all the maps, several collision bugs across maps. I know that my friend Legion actually had a nice little clip where he got launched off the side of payload, and that's something that's happened a couple of times. There are some bugs that will again have that collision error that'll just cause the physics engine to just bug out. And they also addressed gameplay impacting issues like bad lines of sight across all maps also. But getting into the things that you can actually pinpoint, try out, and look out for yourself, the first thing they ended up bringing up was the lobby timer. If you guys remember back to last weekend of the PlayStation 4 beta, the lobby times were insane. It was firstly, I think, a 30-second countdown timer to pick the match, and then a 90-second countdown timer to actually start the game and load in, because that actually comes down to them loading the map in the background while in the pregame lobby, so as to cut down on an essential loading screen here for it. So they ended up changing that from 90 seconds to 70 seconds, but that is something that I'm curious if they're gonna try and whittle it down even further, because still 70 seconds, if that is including also the 30-second or 15-second, whatever it may be, for actually picking the map, that's still quite a bit of time to end up waiting around in between games. But again, I do see the good intentions here with it. It's just a matter of trying to get that down as much as possible. That's something that we last saw this sort of feature come in Infinite Warfare, and I think that was probably one of the best things Infinite Warfare had to offer, because it was actually revolutionary to how maps loaded into a game and how quickly you could get into a match. That was fantastic. So to see Treyarch implementing that now is great. I just want to see it brought down a little bit more. But then they also addressed a little bug that would happen also if players would leave previously. It would reset that lobby timer. So essentially you could be stuck in a perpetual loop of 90 seconds starting over and over again. But to remedy this, they ended up saying that whenever the lobby timer is below 10 seconds, if somebody leaves, they'll only reset it back to 10 seconds. So people can still leave before the 10-second mark and the timer won't be affected. But if they leave after it hits 10 seconds and start that 10-second countdown, if somebody leaves, it'll reset just to 10 seconds, not a full 90. So of course, definitely a nice resolution here. That one, I think I'm all for that one. The next thing up on the list was the flash on screen the moment of taking damage. That was something that was really curious to see that this was actually in the build of it. But essentially, if you took damage, it would actually mess with your visuals on screen to the point where it actually messed you up. So it's not like something where the blood splatter happens. It was a little flash. I think somebody said it was 1 to 2 frames in game, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot, but that does throw you off. So they said they reduced it down and they're working on the right balance to find what they should do here with that one. Afterwards, they talk about movement, which is is a big thing you'll definitely notice here within this patch, is that sliding as well as the jump height has been scaled back tremendously. The jump height was something that I'm totally okay with. I understand where you don't want to promote bunny hopping and where it's something that's the new meta, where essentially it's a mini version of a jump pack game or something like that. So in that sense, it's nice to have a cooldown with it. There is actually a pretty drastic one. 2 jumps in a row, you feel it a little bit, but the 3rd jump, you definitely feel the cooldown penalty for trying to spam it. So that was implemented. The initial jump height, that default distance in the air you go, that was scaled back, that was reduced. And talking about the slides, you no longer slide as fast and you don't go as far, which is something that I don't know if I really agree with that move. I understand the jumping, but I don't know if I agree with the slide tweaks, because I thought this was great in keeping the game super fast paced and making it something that felt fast despite having less players, despite having no jetpacks or thrusters or anything like that. So in that sense, I was perfectly okay with the sliding. You guys may differ on that, and it's totally cool, but they did actually scale that back. Again, you'll definitely notice a difference if you jump on immediately and it was your first time from, say, last week. I came back from a road trip earlier in the afternoon and I jumped on and was immediately taken back by it, but admittedly, I also did think it was going to be way worse. I checked Twitter before actually playing it and everybody was up in arms over it, so I don't know if I am to that extreme of dissatisfaction with it, but it is definitely something that I wouldn't have adjusted it. Spawns were supposedly adjusted in domination only. TDM and everything else has yet to be mentioned on it. I don't know if that's going to be the case where they adjust those, but I also don't think that I've played enough of a sample size of games to tell you if they naturally are better or not, like it's an overall logic adjustment. I'm not sure, but listed is domination. As for the gear, we end up seeing our long-awaited body armor fix, to which this is an interesting one because they end up saying we fixed a bug where explosive damage was not damaging body armor or the player wearing it. Okay, good, that's great. But then they addressed the issue where players wearing body armor had no flinch when taking damage. Personally, I didn't even know this was a thing, but I'm glad that it's fixed out. I'm glad they're going to be able to take flinch now that is something. But we also get into the bigger portions of this to where now players wearing body armor are dealt a percentage of the damage rather than the body armor blocking full damage. So that means that you're not going to be guaranteed a full block of one shot or whatever it was beforehand. It's instead going to only be a percentage. So that comes down to however much damage is dealt, how much damage the weapon uses. So theoretically, let's say an LMG has a damage statistic of around 50 or so. That's something that LMGs usually fall right in the 40 to 50 range, depending on the fire rate. It's kind of a give or take back and forth, but let's just say theoretically it's 50. So instead of that body armor guaranteeing you are blocked of 50, it could block, say, 20%. That would then translate to saving you 10 damage, but if somebody also has an SMG, which SMGs are usually right around the 30 range, 30 to 40, that same 10% wouldn't save you as much damage as it would compared directly to the LMG because the damage properties are different. So percentage is going to alter how we are doing damage to player with body armor, and I think that this is a nice adjustment here to it, thinking about it logically and statistically, because if somebody ends up blocking the first shot immediately, something like the Titan would have the same damage effect as that of, say, an SMG like the MX-9, which again, just from sheer hard-coded numbers, wouldn't make any sense at all. So this is an interesting adjustment, and I'm curious to see how the community will take this over the next couple of days and if this is going to be the final installment of body armor, if we can all agree upon it, but it's definitely an interesting fix to me, no less. But they also added a bonus for players that do kill people with body armor. Every EKIA now is an additional 25 score per kill on that player. So you still get your standard amount of score you end up doing on the damage dealt, and if you end up getting the kill, plus that 25 extra for them having body armor. So a cool little addition there as well. Another piece of gear adjusted was that of the ComSec device. It further reduced the cost of the score streaks of the ComSec device for the RCXD, the UAV, the care package, the counter UAV, the attack chopper, the strafe run, the strike team, as well as the gunship. Then stim shot and standard healing were both adjusted also, in which the time to full health has been sped up a little bit further with an increase to the heal cooldown time. So again, it kind of trades off where stim shot previously we mentioned was changed out from the previous versions where it was instant health, but it also was a super fast recharge time. As of last week, it was something that was slower on the heal, but also still relatively fast, and now it's a faster but not instantaneous healing adjustment, but then the cooldown itself is a little bit longer. So it's not something you can still spam, and even still with the default, the same properties were added there as well, but just a little bit slower simply because it's not stim shot. Then finally, the last gear piece was the equipment charge. That was changed out so that all equipment will charge faster with the gear. As for perks, there were a handful that did actually get an adjustment, Dead Silence being the first one in which it increased Dead Silence effectiveness versus Acoustic Sensor by reducing the ranges at which the Acoustic Sensor can detect a player with Dead Silence. Flakjack was up next, in which it reduced explosive damage protection, so a slight nerf to that one. Cold-Blooded was next, in which they reduced the delay that AI will take to recognize a cold-blooded player by a little over 50%. So definitely something if you run Cold-Blooded and you felt a little comfortable next to those AI streaks, you might want to think twice this time, because that is a big buff here to the AI and nerf to Cold-Blooded. Dexterity then increased the weapon hit spread when mantling, which is again a slight nerf to that, and reduced slide duration. So you might be picking up on some of these, that these nerfs are a little bit, not overpowered, but they do take away from some of the things that they really do help out the core gameplay with. Ghost then was up next with the decreased time that you are protected by Ghost after you stop moving. Tac Mask was reduced with the amount of resistance to 9-bang, concussion, reactor core, and fire. And then Tracker increased the duration that footsteps remained in the world. So kind of a little bit of a bunch of different things, nerfs and buffs. Some of these I don't really agree with, but we'll see if they do all stay like this. I don't know if they will, but for now we have a little bit of a weekend too of some weaker perks, some stronger ones, and anything in between. After that, we end up coming to equipment. There's a less cooldown on the combat axe. All equipment cooldown is longer across the board now, which is unfortunate. The frag grenade has an increased inner and outer damage to match cluster grenades damage. 9-bang is something that increased the stun radius as well as decreased the fire delay. And then tac deploy is something that reduced the positive influence on the tac deploy, meaning that it'll allow players to spawn on the tac deploy to have a better chance at spawning in the safe conditions when possible, not right on top of it. So that's something that is good and bad. The point of attack deploy is to get right back into the action or to hold an area while even still dying. So if that's something that if say a team is spawn trapping, it's fantastic for the team getting spawn trapped obviously, but if you want to hold that position, you're not going to be directly right where that is placed anymore. It's instead going to be an outer perimeter a little bit further away, but that also in the sense of the team placing it down, if an entire team is surrounding the attack deploy, it's not like they're going to spawn trap as easy now because you're not spawning directly on it. So in that sense, it's kind of a mixed bag of emotions on it. It just really comes down to the situation and how you use the tac deploy, but that was adjusted as such additionally. Then finally, the reactor core, it increased the damage distance, which is nice because it was something that was relatively underpowered, I think, in the way of actually doing damage, not necessarily stunning players. But moving on to specialists, Ajax had a movement increase to which both whenever you're using the ballistic shield when you're regularly moving with it and also while you're ADS'd or what they call fortified, that's something in which that speed in which you move is a little bit faster now to negate the effect of feeling sluggish. Ruin had an increase to the Grav Slam cooldown, so it'll take a little bit longer to get that and to help focus on the reduction of that spam. We talked about how Firebreak had a little bit more damage added it to the reactor core, but also his Purifier has a little bit more fuel, so you can end up having the flames going a little bit longer. Torque had an increase to the duration of the barricade and the improved damage on its microwave field. I know that I walked by earlier in a game today and I died in an instant and I was like, wait a second, was that seriously the shield? So in that sense, it is definitely a very viable option now in that sense, but that was adjusted there as well. Prophet had the Tempest cooldown decrease so you can earn it a little bit faster, as well as the ADS move speed is slightly faster as well for those already using the Tempest. So you'll have a little bit more mobility with it this time around. And then finally, Nomad, the doggo had the sprint speed nerfed, which now it's not running around the entire time, but it will have its spurts where she's running at you. And they fixed some bugs where it was actually lunging completely in the air and just floating, but definitely rest in peace to the memes that came out of that first weekend of the beta with that. As for score streaks, there's one big thing that is absolutely beautiful here with us to start this list off. Score streak progress is now no longer resetting between domination rounds. If you guys ended up playing domination at all and jumped in, got some streaks, and then the round ended, it would reset everything to the point where you'd have to get everything over again. And so therefore, really a big bummer because you would have been really close, but then it didn't matter at the next round. So that's actually been taken out. I don't know if that was a bug or a slight oversight in design intent, but it is something that's now fixed up to it carries over in the next round for this weekend. Additionally, the Lightning Strike in specific had the explosive damage radius increased. The tablet will now sweep for enemy positions in the Fog of War when it's first used. Hellstorm has the Cluster Bomb lock-on radius increased. The Sentry has an increased health and also can be placed while sprinting. The Strafe Run has better pathing and is reduced in cost now. The Strike Team had a default cost increase, but also had weapon accuracy increased as well, giving that Strike Team a little bit more lethality and behavior updates to seek out enemies a little quicker rather than them just standing around. And they also increased the health per squad member also. The Gunship had a cost reduction. The Mantis had the health increased, damage increased, move speed increased, and behavioral changes to seek out enemies a little quicker as well. Because once again, like with the Strike Team, It was powerful, but didn't always work out as intended at times. And finally, the attack chopper had some behavioral changes to seek out enemies quicker as well. All these probably also tying back into the cold-blooded nerf, so they'll end up picking up enemies a little quicker that have cold-blooded, and referring to that also. The final thing we'll talk about today is that of weapons, and boy oh boy, there are a lot of them, so we'll just run down these real quick, rapid fire style. The GKS is one. The ADS recoil was reduced for increased ADS accuracy. Hipfire spread was reduced as well for increased hipfire accuracy. It also improved the high damage range and improved the ammo pool, so an overall buff to the GKS. The Cordite is something that had an increased weapon recoil, has a little more kick this time around, and extended mags improves the bullets gained, so you end up having a few more than previously. The Spitfire is something that increased the weapon recoil, which it already had quite a bit, and if you end up putting on the Operator mod with the Wildfire, you'll definitely notice the recoil increase. Then it also reduced the ammo pool. Fast mags now is improved and standardized reload speeds are added in as such, and extended mags improve the bullet gains as well. The MX-9 is next up, which had very little done to it. It increased the weapon recoil and that's it. The ICR-7 had improved ADS in speed, not out, but whenever you first initially ADS in. It also improved the movement speed while ADSing and also the movement speed while firing in ADS. The Rampart 17 also had an improved ADS in speed, as do all the rifles here that were adjusted. The movement speed while ADS as well as firing was also adjusted and increased, so you have better mobility with that. It's pretty much a carbon copy going down to the Maddox again after this one. The ADS in, the speeds while ADSing and firing both increased, but then also the stock attachment has improved movement speed while in ADS also. The KN has all those once again improved, including that stock, but also has an extra additional thing of increased higher damage range. So the max amount of damage that it'll do initially, that range is pushed back a little bit so you have a little bit more on it. The Vapor XKG or VAPR XKG had all of those once again, improved ADS speed, higher damage short range, an improvement to the movement speed while ADS and firing in ADS, also the improvement to the stock, but also had the bayonet slightly reduced in range. That was an operator mod for that weapon. I don't know how many people really used it, but if you did, it did have a slight reduction to it. Then the LMGs, the Titan had an improved hipfire accuracy, improved movement speed while ADSing, as well as firing while ADSing, and the stock attachment also had that improved movement while firing in ADS as well. The MOG 12 had a slightly increased one-hit kill range, which is, again, nice if you don't have the attachment on for the shotgun, because shotguns as secondaries are much weaker this time around in this game. The SG-12 had the extended mags improved bullets gained. The Helion Salvo launcher had an improved ADS in time, as well as the raise and drop times were improved additionally. The ABR-223 had the extended mags improved bullet gains. The Koshka Sniper had the quick draw 1 and 2. Both their ADS in times were slowed down, as well as the center speed that was increased for precision aim crosshair sizing. Then, finally, the Paladin HB50 Sniper was affixed for left arms taking less damage than the right arm, which is kind of weird, but that's ultimately where we're at here with this one. An absolutely massive patch for Black Ops 4. So, that said, I know we covered a lot, we talked about a lot, and I don't want to keep you guys too long by breaking down stuff even further, but that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think about this here? Is this something that we end up seeing good changes, bad changes? Is there something you would have proposed? Would there be something you wouldn't have adjusted that they did? Whatever it is, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it insightful. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and don't want to miss anything regarding Black Ops 4 content, updates, news, best class setups, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here on the channel, so if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, getting a little more active over there, so that link is as well down there for you guys to check out if you want to. With that said, hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.